Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Thursday's edition of Coffee Talks. We're happy to have all of you joining us today. I am going to, we've learned very quickly that our 30 minutes goes rapidly. So I don't think that our speaker this afternoon needs much of an introduction. I'm going to just let him jump right in. So Dr. Pete McCown is our president at the Community Foundation. Pete, I'm going to go ahead and turn everything over to you. You please let us know how we can help navigate the talk this afternoon, and Ashley and I will do what we can to support you during your conversation.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to see most of your faces. Some of you don't have your faces on here. So Jody, probably for those of you who know me, Jody and Ashley, your responsibility is that in the event that I might get a little emotional, your role is to fill whatever gap there might be until I've recovered myself. We got talking about these coffee talks a few weeks ago. Delighted that Jody and Ashley have organized a variety of resources. We started with Margene and Chris Spataro. I forget Margene's last name, Jody.
Margene Zink.
Zink, thank you. From Krugel-Lawton, helped all of us understand the implications of the CARES Act and where the PPP loan may be worth considering for our organizations. I'm thrilled to report that today we went ahead and applied for a PPP loan, and we were confirmed today that those resources were deposited in our checking account, which will allow the foundation to continue our normal operations. For those of you that are decision makers for your organizations, if you have not seriously considered availing yourselves to the CARES Act, particularly the Paycheck Protection Program loans that are forgivable, I would strongly encourage you to take swift action and make a decision and apply if possible. That loan has, that program has been refunded or additionally funded, may also be exhausted at some point in the not too distant future. So if you have not applied for a PPP loan and your organization qualifies, I would strongly encourage you to consider doing so. But as we talked, did some planning for these coffee conversations, I volunteered myself to host one of them and wanted to just share some very positive points of observation over the last month from our perspective as a foundation that has the opportunity to be included in lots of community conversations. So we entitled this Inspired, and I took the time here the last couple of days to think about things that I have observed that have inspired me over the last month. I have them in bullet point, but I'll probably wander a bit as well. So I think I have 9 bullet points. And I will start with bullet point number 1. So one of the things that I have been most inspired by are all the people who continue to go to work every day, even in this current crisis, to deliver the services that we still need. Whether or not that be our healthcare professionals, our grocery store workers, gas station attendants, our police, fire, and other city employees, delivery drivers, restaurant workers, and mail carriers. I'm so thankful that the Old Style Deli remains open, because I come into the office every day and kind of maintain things here. And they are my one little break during the day where I turn off the elevator and I run over to get a sandwich. And I'm thankful that the Old Style Deli has a pretty broad menu, so that on one day I can have a come tuna my window pita wrap, and on another day, like today, I can have a Billy Blue Burger. I'm equally, if not more, I guess I wouldn't say more, that's not fair. I have been really positively impressed with the way that both our state and local elected officials have conducted themselves. I'm proud of the governor and our state health department leader. I've observed the way that our mayors and county commissioners and critical incident response folks have been working together to coordinate and make decisions about crisis response, and the role that they've played and the spirit in which they've coordinated their efforts, regardless of some of their political alignments at other times during the year. I have to tell you that I have had quite a number of interactions with folks that own businesses here in Elkhart County. Galen Miller of Miller Poultry, Amish Shaw, Bob Martin at Thor, Jason Lippert at Lippert Components, Tom Irons at ASA Electronics. I'm so impressed and inspired by their respective concern for their employees and the customers that they serve. You know, I watch Galen Miller. This is Miller Poultry. He has a processing plant in Orland, Indiana, and grows and produces chickens across the county and beyond. You know, his first concern is for the safety of his employees, but he has a distinct motivation and sense of responsibility to continue to provide the food product that his company provides. And he has just a compelling sense of responsibility that he stay open and at the same time keep his employees safe. I will also tell you that Galen is one of the many people who have asked the question, what role can I play as a donor? And we've been in regular interaction around his desire to help make sure that folks who have less are cared for. You know, Amish Shaw and Chemcrest, normally an automotive logistics company, have pivoted and they are making hand sanitizer in one of their plants. And I could go down a whole list of other businesses that are doing unique and creative things in today's environment. Of course, it will come as no surprise that my fourth bullet point of inspiration is all of the generous people who are sharing their resources in this time of need, including donors, many of whom are giving sacrificially of their resources to help with the needs of others. Just this week, we directed more than $1 million worth of gifts to Elkhart County not-for-profit organizations, much of which came from donors who maintain a fund here at the foundation. Folks like Bill Fennick, formerly of Grand Design and now Barletta Boats, helped pay for and secure through his own supply chain tens of thousands of N95 masks for a pretty broad swath of healthcare organizations, nursing homes, so Greencroft, Hubbard Hill, Heart City Healthcare, Greenleaf Assisted Living, Elkhart General, and Goshen Hospital received some of those N95 masks. We had an anonymous donor this week who recently gave $300,000 to the COVID-19 Relief Fund, wants to be known as Secret Santa. So we got talking about a photo op, and I wondered whether or not we were going to have that anonymous donor dress up like Santa Claus with a big white beard to discuss her or his identity. So many other folks have called that we have a relationship with the foundation and have asked the question, how can I help? And we've either directed them to the causes that are dearest to their heart, or we've directed it to this unified COVID-19 relief fund that we've organized together with the United Way. We've probably received about $1 million worth of COVID-19 relief gifts that are being redeployed to not-for-profit organizations across the county. So if you have a COVID-19 related need, so that fund is principally to deliver immediate support for organizations who are delivering COVID-19 related services. There will be another tranche or round of resources that are available for a broader group of not-for-profits that could use our help in other ways. But for food pantries and healthcare facilities and counseling services, you know, I'm looking at Mark and Rich here on the bottom part of my screen. Teal, you guys could avail yourselves as well. Just know that those resources, you can go to our website and apply. I see Mona Livingston is on this call. Mona and Candy Yoder, Keith Sarber, the folks here at the Community Foundation, as well as the United Way, are jointly reviewing those applications. And the funding is either coming from our disaster relief fund or that unified COVID-19 relief fund as well. I'm also inspired by many of the volunteers. So, and I think about generosity, it's not just treasure, but time and talent. So we have the good fortune of having added our acts of service platform here at the beginning of this calendar year. And Ashley Jordan, who is on this call, is the director of our acts of service platform. She's probably been busier than a one-armed wallpaper hanger this last month, helping recruit and organize volunteers. Most recently, Ashley, I'm even going to ask you to unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about the mask sewing army that you have organized.
Yeah, so it's been really, really exciting to see the number of volunteers just, you know, quietly come out of the woodwork and say, how can we help? And so last week, I acquired 900 mask kits to be sewn. So I deployed those to sewers through faith-based groups, through connections within COAD, through quilting groups in Elkhart County. And a lot of those masks have already come back. So I went to Pete and I said, Pete, you know, there's a substantial need for these. What can we do? And so we are looking at purchasing material to produce 13,000 cloth masks that will be very valuable to a lot of you. If you have a need for masks for your residents, if you're helping, you know, seniors, or you're working with ADAC and you have a need, or if your volunteers at your nonprofit have a need for these masks, please email me and let me know. I'm still working on the plan with that. I know that Michaela Grimes from Lippert Components is on the call with us today. I'm working with Lippert to figure out a plan to get everything cut and pre-cut so that our sewers are literally only sewing. We don't want anybody to get fatigued or jaded from the situation that's going on. But we're looking at producing 13,000 masks with the help of our acts of service business partner, Lippert Components, as well as the sewers throughout the community. So if you know of anybody that sews and would like to sew masks, send them my way. I'm going to have quite the amount of masks to sew, and if there's a further need, we'll look at purchasing more material and get more masks made. And it's just been possible with all these very generous volunteers that want to find a way to give back within the safety of their home, and it's just been phenomenal to see the response.
Ashley, how many yards of material and elastic band did you order this week?
So this week I had purchased 5,000 yards of elastic that should be arriving maybe even today or tomorrow. I am working with Michaela to purchase 475 yards of interfacing, and I am working with a manufacturer out of Missouri to purchase 875 yards of material.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I've been inspired just by watching our community. So I characterize this, I started this bullet point, people in general, all of us who have submitted ourselves to this unplanned stay-at-home circumstance, and we're making the best of it. Whether or not that's folks keeping in touch with friends and family. So every day, I set aside a few hours because most of my work is normally done across the table at a restaurant with friends of the foundation and folks who are generous. And because I can't do that now, I usually schedule about 3 hours a day where I just go down my contacts list and make phone calls and check in on people. Sometimes those become hour-long conversations. Sometimes they're 3-minute conversations. But I've actually really quite enjoyed that time of the day. But just what, you know, we go for a walk in our neighborhood. I suspect I've seen more of my neighbors in the last month because we're all out walking our dog. And of course, we don't go up and hug each other, but people are making a point to be more friendly and more neighborly in a way that, you know, I used to go home and just hit my remote control and pull my car into my garage and hit the remote control to close the door and really have very little interaction with my neighbors on my cul-de-sac. And now we're all outside and we're so thankful to have some sort of human interaction that I actually think the world has changed in a positive way in some respects. You know, on a very personal level, we have 5 adult-ish age kids, the youngest of which is 18, the oldest of which is 23. Well, 4 of those 5 kids have been trapped in our home for the last month. And it's really kind of been a bonus month, right? I mean, we could hardly get the attention of our high school senior because his schedule and curriculum was so full of all of his own social activity and part-time job and, you know, some young lady that he has an interest in and all the rest of it. And now he has to sit down and eat dinner with me. And we play Uno and we play Skip-Bo and we binge watch Blacklist reruns. And, you know, we got out family videos of them when they were little kids last weekend. You know, when was the last time we did that? I don't know if you do that kind of thing regularly, but those times where all 6 of the 7 of us are together sitting in the family room watching Remember Me When I Was 7 years old playing T-ball videos. I've really enjoyed that time. You know, I see all this Facebook stuff, you know, Marshall King is the king of it, but all of this cooking and baking stuff, I have to admit, I joined the fray this weekend and made my one world famous, well, I have 2 world famous meals. We have Crazy Pete's world famous eggs that my kids all ask for when I'm up on Saturday morning. But I also very rarely make Crazy Pete's world famous apple cheese tort because it takes about 2 hours to prepare. You got to peel and cut about a dozen Granny Smith apples that I'm not that efficient at it, so it takes me a good half an hour just to get through that step in the recipe. So I hope all of you are enjoying the same kinds of experiences in your own daily lives that are different and unusual right now. You know, I've enjoyed and been inspired by the creativity of our spiritual leaders, our pastors and rabbis, who they've had to find unique and creative ways to minister to our souls, as well as all the lay people who are praying fervently for the health, safety, and recovery of our world. You know, I'm inspired. Here in the last couple of months, we made a very conscious decision to coordinate our community leadership and investment activity with the United Way. We agreed that we would create a unified COVID-19 relief fund as opposed to each organization messaging that in different ways, and that we would coordinate our grant decision-making in this current circumstance. You know, each of our organizations has different styles and personalities and operating systems, and we've had to figure out how to make that work. But between Bill Reith and I, there is nothing but entire trust and integrity between our interaction, but also having watched Candy and Amanda and Bonnie and Mona and Keith and the whole United Way team do their work in a unified and coordinated way. And this is one where it has to be high trust because each organization is used to making decisions somewhat on their own terms. We decided we would to some extent divide and delegate areas of responsibility. So Mona is running point on matters related to childcare. Keith, it appears, is running point on matters related to food and food security, as well as individual family economic relief efforts. So things like rent and utility security, income disruption. Candy and our program team are running point on matters related to community advocacy, healthcare, the vulnerable populations, the underserved populations. So we're thinking about things like, how do we make sure that we are doing the right kind of healthcare and testing work in the Amish community and the uninsured community and the undocumented community, as well as, David Toney, who's on this call. He and Candy have been interacting around what role we play in supporting the work of the Council on Aging. Rich, of course, with the Clubhouse and ADEC and organizations, Oaklawn and organizations of that nature. Really proud to see those two organizations and the teams within those organizations do their work together. Marshall and Matt are thinking carefully with Jody about our communication systems and how we present our joint message in the community, and that's all gone as well as I would have hoped and expected. I'm similarly thankful and inspired by the Lilly Endowment out of Indianapolis. Most of you would be familiar with Lilly Endowment. It is the philanthropic legacy of the Lilly Pharmaceutical Company. It is related but independent of the pharmaceutical company. They manage about 11 or 12 billion dollars, about the second or third largest foundation in the world, behind the Gates Foundation. They just recently announced a $33.5 million emergency response grant that will be administered by United Way chapters across the state. Stay tuned for our local United Way to make an announcement as to the scale, scope, and role of the grant that they will soon be receiving from the Lilly Endowment. I'm inspired by the entire team here at the foundation, including our board and committee members who are using both new and established ways to serve our community, whether or not that be through our new acts of service platform that helps recruit and organize volunteers in ways that I already mentioned, our grant committees and program staff who continue to make thoughtful investments through our grant making, our advancement team that is scrambling around and creating resources to serve you, including this coffee chat approach that has helped us think about the CARES Act and fundraising and leadership and personal health and resiliency. Stay tuned to see what next creative coffee talks Jody organizes. At least the bottom has now been established, so all things get better from here. But we've also got our finance and administrative team that continues to come to work on a regular and repeated basis to maintain our business and investment activities and responsibilities. As a point of encouragement for many of you who have funds established here at the Community Foundation, we built our portfolio over the last decade to weather an economic storm like this. Our portfolio is diversified in ways that differ from probably your own personal 401k plan or traditional investment platform. So yes, we have about a 50% exposure to what would be described as long equity, but that 50% allocation is complemented by about a 30% allocation to a set of private equity and hedge fund investments that are very much intended to either be counter-cyclical to the market or to be somewhat uncorrelated to the traditional stock market indexes. Some of those investments have actually performed to the positive over the last quarter. And so while our traditional equity exposure might be down about 15 or 20% right now, those other equities are either stable or enhanced. So our best estimate, and you tell me where the market goes today or tomorrow, and I will give you an even more accurate estimate because the swings are 2, 3, 5% a day, one direction or the other. But my best estimate is that our portfolio is only down about 10%, even though the market might be off 20. And I could be pessimistic about that estimate at this point. So for those of you that have funds here and you're wondering whether or not they are weathering the storm and what the balances may look like, if you had $100,000 going into this calendar year, you probably have $90,000 still housed here. So the world is not falling apart on the foundation's investment front. As a matter of fact, we've taken advantage of some of this, and we've actually about 3 weeks ago, and it seemed the timing seemed to be about right. We weren't quite sure. We actually increased our long equity exposure by about 10%, taking into account the fact that we felt like equities were on sale, and we wanted to own more equities for a time in which they have recovered. And last, but certainly not least, I have been very much inspired by all of you and your colleagues in the not-for-profit sector who have been forced to adapt or suspend your normal routines and patterns of service delivery. I'm impressed by your concern for the clients that you serve, whether or not that be puppies or seniors or folks with developmental disabilities. I have observed we've all gotten a lot better at things like Zoom. We've gotten better at remote stuff. Heck, I even learned how to change the background of my screen on Zoom calls. And I have also noticed that the inner child in me comes out during these Zoom calls. So this is the first time I have not playfully put up somebody else's portrait of them doing something silly from some Facebook stalking that I've done while I'm on a call with somebody. Jody really is not in a coffee shop in Napanee, even though it looks like it. And she taught me how to do this whole background screen thing. I tell you, the other thing that I have become very conscious of is how I present myself or how I look on video. So I've changed the lighting in my office, and I'm almost tempted to do makeup under the dark spots under my eyes and learned how to get just the right distance from the video camera. I'm sure that many of you have found the same. So that concludes my thoughts. Look, Jody, I didn't even lose it emotionally. We had a staff meeting earlier this week, and I was sharing my dad is an ordained minister, and I had the privilege of hearing a sermon. I've heard him preach before, but he had updated it. And it's a sermon out of the book of Habakkuk, which is way, 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 way in the back of the Old Testament. And it's about 5 pages deep or 5 pages long. I think it's 3 chapters. And Habakkuk wrote from his perspective at a time that would feel very similar to this. And he kind of shook his fist at God and said, why are you letting this happen, right? Judah is being overrun by the Babylonians and the Roman Empire. And what the hell are you going to do about it? And then God responds by saying, I'm very much aware. And in my time, whether or not you think that is too long, much like we feel every time Governor Holcomb says, I'm going to extend this stay-at-home order by another 2 weeks. But in my time, I will respond. And Habakkuk then accepts and rejoices God's answer. But as I was sharing that with the staff, I lost it, like totally lost it emotionally. And everybody had a good chuckle at me. So I was worried that I might lose it here today. So I'd be happy to answer questions. Let's have whatever discussion you guys want to have. Pull Jody and Candy and Ashley and you guys in on this as well. Jim and Lori, hello to you guys.
So we have a lot of positive responses to your reference to Habakkuk. Pete, thank you for sharing that story. I hoped that you would. So I appreciate you offering that sentiment. There was a question early on, and I do believe that it has been answered. But the question is there a central information hub that the community members can go to find where to access resources in these trying times?
Jody and Candy, I'll let you guys answer that question.
Yeah, Marshall did respond. Really the Elkhart County Health.org is a website. You can also go to in.gov. I tend to type in ISHD for Indiana State Health Department COVID, and it will bring up the in.gov page, and it is a great place to get trusted resources. You can monitor cases and different things. We had Susie Wyrick, one of our county commissioners, on our Kiwanis. We're doing our Kiwanis calls by Zoom now. And she was telling us that the trouble with the reporting, depending on what site you go to, is where the information is coming from. So not everybody is using the same labs to turn in their testing. And so it's been difficult to make sure we're reporting strong numbers. So locally, please let us know. We're trying to put resources as much as we can that we think are useful to all of you in your work. If there are things that you're looking for that you can't find, please reach out to us and we'll do our best to find the right connection and get it back to you. My inbox is full of different things every day that I could send you guys emails every 5 minutes and it still wouldn't share everything that's out there. And I'm sure you guys are also getting them in your inboxes too. So we're trying to be very respectful of not overloading you with information. But if there is specific information you're looking for, please let us know and we'll make sure we can get it to you. Candy, do you want to add anything to that?
I'm not sure if Candy's on the phone still or on this. Is this called what is this called? I call it a Zoom room.
Yeah, we'll call it a Zoom room. We'll give you that. That sounds good. Welcome to the Zoom room, everyone.
Mr. Caskey, can you give us just a quick glimpse at what the hospital is experiencing?
Yeah, I think we are in a situation where a lot of excellent planning has taken place, but you don't know what's coming. And I think it was Rich who was talking about the curve being different for Elkhart County, possibly than the entire state. And I just saw a graph of that this morning too. That looks like our curve is potentially lower and a little longer, but less than what we've prepped for. So I'm really happy that we're way prepped, and I'm happy if we don't need to use it. But yeah, we've effectively prepared, and we have a whole lot of folks as well sewing masks. And I would echo many of the comments that you made about how this community is stepping forward. Food too, my goodness, people are so generous with food offerings, and I think
so we're gonna have chubby doctors, nurses, and technicians at the end of this whole.
If we're not careful, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm asking to break any sort of HIPAA law or confidentiality, but in terms of general estimates, how many COVID-19 patients might be at the hospital on any given day?
I don't think that is breaking anything, but we're less than 20. And I would say in general, in isolation and on ventilators, we're not any more or less than a usual time at this point. Yeah.
Well, and while we're on the hospital topic, I will tell you that I have had more than a few interactions with both Randy Christoffel and Carl Risk, the two hospital senior officers, and the spirit of coordination between the two of them. In a normal environment, they are competitors, but in this circumstance, there is just an impressive amount of unity. And, when we were even dealing with how many of these masks that Bill Fennick had kind of a unique supply chain access to because he's on the manufacturing side of things. both hospital administrators said, we would love to have all that we possibly could, but we also don't want to consume the entirety of what might be necessary and available to many of the other healthcare or client-serving organizations, Basher Children's Home and Council on Aging and places like that, where there continues to be direct client interaction. So we could use some, but if Greencroft and Hubbard Hill and some of these other organizations that are on the direct service lines need them, we will continue to procure what we need, make sure that they're taken care of as a higher priority. And that, you know, that's impressive when you're supposed to be looking out for your own interests.
Well, I think that we are at 2:35. We really do try and keep these to 30 minutes. I think that the 30-minute time frame, while it goes very quickly, we've noticed that all of you are carving out that time for us, and we so appreciate it. Thank you, Pete, for inspiring us this afternoon. A great way to head into our weekend. We hope that you will join us on Tuesday for our coffee talk on Tuesday morning. We have Marcus Fila coming with us, and his topic is managing through COVID-19, an opportunity to improve job design for less stress later. So we hope that you all have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please let us know how we can support you. We are here to help you. So take care. God bless everybody.